for Banff-Kananaskis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to rise today in response to the throne speech for this 31st session of the legislature. The Banff-Kananaskis riding has a varied and long history in Alberta, and in many ways it has been at the heart of our nation's development and our provincial identity. From time immemorial, Banff has been a gathering place for First Nations to connect from all corners of Turtle Island or North America. In Banff-Kananaskis, we are blessed to be the home of the Stoney Nakoda, the Goodstoney, Bearspaw, and Chiniki nations, and to the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Our riding falls into Treaty 7, so it is also home to the Blackfoot, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika. Sharing a border with BC, we are also home to the Ktunaxa and the Secwepemc. That one is the hardest for sure. As well as part of the Métis homeland. This land is rich with a history that stirs in the soils, the air, and the water. Present day, however, there are immense challenges that our Indigenous communities face. During the campaign, my team and I frequently visited the Stoney community of Minithini. It was difficult to connect to the people in the community, however, because in a period of 3.5 weeks, there were 17 funerals. The majority of which were for young people who died too soon from drug poisoning. 17 needless deaths. If this was happening in any other community and not on an Indigenous reserve, people would be shouting from the rooftops demanding action. So consider this me shouting from a rooftop. While the Alberta government's commitment to grow the AIOC and Indigenous tourism is appreciated, it may not address the priorities of communities that are literally in a constant state of grief. We must do better. Shortly after becoming MLA, I was invited by Stoney chiefs and elders to a pipe ceremony on the Stoney Reserve. The elders prayed that I would stay honorable, retain integrity, and represent them in a good way. Their prayers stay with me as I navigate this new role, and I remain humbled and honored for their blessing. I am truly grateful for the many generations of stewards that have come before me that enable me to live, work, and play where I do. In 1887, the Government of Canada and CP Rail saw the tourism potential in the uniqueness of this landscape and created Canada's first national park around the hot springs. Banff National Park is the birthplace of the tourism industry in Canada, making tourism one of the oldest industries in our province. Older than any resource extraction practice, and it continues to be a significant portion of our economy. A fact you will hear me reiterate multiple times in this House. Canadian mountaineering was born in the Rockies and continues to shape our communities as we are home to globally renowned athletes and Olympians, a very active community, and a long history of people who are the most hardcore you've ever heard of. This history is captured in amazing photos at the White Museum of men in woolen knickers and women in skirts summiting snowy peaks for the first time. While we've exchanged the hemp ropes and boots with heels for better gear, mountain athleticism is reflected in everyday life. People come from around the world to race, compete, and get their heart rates up in the Bow Valley. Until this year, we were home to the Alpine Canada World Cup at Lake Louise, an event that I and many of our tourism and sports stakeholders hope to see return soon. The communities of the Bow Valley, from Dead Man's Flats to Lake Louise, have been welcoming the world for over 130 years. While we revel in this opportunity, it comes at a cost. Affordability has been at crisis levels for near a decade. The ever-increasing cost of housing continues to impact the fabric of these mountain communities as businesses can't attract or retain staff, teachers and nurses can't afford to settle here, and young people can't afford to start families here. My riding also boasts the most loved provincial parks in the province. People have been camping along the shores of the Kananaskis River for 5,000 years. In 1959, Bow Valley Provincial Park was designated, and in 1978, Premier Lougheed officially dedicated Kananaskis Country and what eventually became Peter Lougheed Provincial Park. Today, over 4 million people visit the Kananaskis parks and recreation areas each year. With a village in its center and being a combination of protected areas and public lands, Kananaskis is defined by a complex matrix of land jurisdictions that has been studied and applied around the world to effectively address various land management objectives, It is a gem in the Alberta landscape for countless reasons. On the eastern edge of Kananaskis, the communities of Bragg Creek and Redwood Meadows nestle into the forest. Redwood Meadows is unique in Alberta as an independent municipality on leased land from the Tsuut'ina First Nation. This is a warm community where children's toys cover front yards, neighbors chat while walking the dog, and a community barbecue is the best way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Bragg Creek is a vibrant, growing community filled with passionate people who balance retaining their community identity with welcoming thousands of people from Calgary and beyond to recreate on their vast trail network. Residents here are interested in planning that creates opportunities for businesses to thrive while also retaining the character of the community. Springbank is a diverse community home to third-generation cattle ranchers, agriculturalists, equestrian enthusiasts, and city residents. Here, I learned how to make butter and meet donkeys on the same day that I chatted with folks about gardening ornamental perennials. Springbank has taught me that you cannot know a community until you spend time in it, and I have loved every trip I've made into Springbank. The east side of the riding is filled with a history of Alberta settlement and agriculture. In the far northeast corner, the Bottrell General Store proudly stands surrounded by cattle ranches. Operating since 1901, it is the oldest general store in continuous operation in Alberta. In the south, the agricultural and acreage communities of Millerville and Priddis span the eastern slopes. The Millerville Racetrack, established in 1905, continues to draw all kinds of people to its markets and races, and the Millerville Racing and Agricultural Society remains at the heart of these communities who celebrate who they are at every opportunity. North to the village of Wypress and the summer village of Ghost Lake. These communities are characterized by people who enjoy the quiet of the woods, the peacefulness of watching the mist lift off the river or the lake, and who appreciate each other. The Ghost landscape holds an incredibly special place in my heart. It might be one of the best, most important, and most politically ignored landscapes in Alberta. This is a recreational haven for hiking, equestrian trails, motorized recreation, and climbing. It is enjoyed by many, but sadly, poor provincial oversight, funding, and enforcement has led to significant damage and user conflict. Damage to the Ghost wetlands and ecosystems can be reclaimed, trails can be better managed, and better camping infrastructure can improve the experiences of native trout and people alike. When I consider the government's objectives to double tourism by 2035, I see this as a land of opportunity. One thing I've learned touring my riding is that we do a disservice to every single rural community in Alberta when we lump them all together under the title of rural versus urban. They are all unique and have their own characteristics, challenges, and solutions. This underscores our need to work collaboratively to address the needs of our communities. When we embrace diversity, we are stronger. The LGBTQIA2S+ communities in Canmore and Banff have also taught me the importance of intentionally embracing diversity. The queer community here is vibrant and growing, and an essential part of who we are as we welcome people from diverse cultures and nations. With their support, I have learned the importance of being an ally is found not only in our words, but in our actions that denounce hate and empower the people in our communities to be who they are, wholly and with pride. While the people living across Banff-Kananaskis riding differ in many ways, we all have one thing in common. We love the land and choose to live here because of our connection to it. Whether we want to stare out at it with a morning coffee, ride or hike through it, raise cattle or sheep, or come from generations of stewards before us, we all love this land and we all come together to fight for it to remain as beautiful as it is today. My constituents want to retain a sense of place. They also want guaranteed access to a doctor, regardless of how rural they choose to live. They want a government who listens and who wants to address their concerns about losing the best of this landscape to climate change and development pressures. They demand a government that is accountable, honest, and transparent. I am proud to be their representative in this House. I am a first-generation Canadian. My dad immigrated to Calgary from Egypt and my mom from England in the early 1970s. My dad left Egypt because of a corrupt dictatorship government. He always reinforced in me the importance of democracy and to appreciate that not everyone in the world has it. He consistently voted Conservative, And my mom has consistently voted NDP, so I guess I'm a mixed family. We didn't shy away from these differences. We listened to each other to understand them. My dad and I rarely agreed about politics, but in our heated discussions, I learned that it is possible to strongly disagree with someone and walk away with love in your heart. As a conservation biologist, I have worked diligently to ensure our wild spaces retain their biodiversity, environmental integrity, and recreational access. In my career, I have been part of teams that successfully got grizzly bears listed as threatened, campaigned to create the Castle Provincial Parks, engaged communities in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, increased conservation programs across Alberta's grasslands, improved planning for wildlife corridors in the Crow's Nest Pass, and so much more. Coexisting with wildlife is a theme that all communities in my riding face, and an issue that was the focus of my PhD and full-length book. I believe that wildlife management is mostly people management, and this means understanding what the people want and need. Before becoming MLA, I had already worked across the Banff-Kananaskis riding for years with many different stakeholders. I am just as comfortable branding a calf as I am hiking to the top of a mountain or taking in a show at the Banff Centre. And I love a beef burger just as much as a mushroom burger, and I love every square inch of the Banff-Kananaskis riding. That love is what drove me here. The last 4 years, I felt increasingly disenchanted with what our provincial government was doing, or rather not doing, when it came to addressing the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. This reached a peak for me when coal mining on the eastern slopes was opened up, and when 165 Alberta parks were placed on a chopping block for delisting. This, combined with the systemic dismantling of Alberta parks as a public service division and the inequity of the Kananaskis Conservation Pass, frustrated me. While I have always lived with a conservative government, except for those 4 glorious years, this was honestly the first time I felt like the government was destroying everything I loved about the Banff-Kananaskis riding and about Alberta. And I wasn't alone. I heard common concerns about a government that wasn't listening, that wasn't representing us, and that wasn't using evidence to inform decision-making. So I stand here today, in this house, as a proud resident of the Banff-Kananaskis riding. I am a woman in STEM, a biologist, a strategic and a holistic thinker. I am a wife, a mother, and a daughter. I believe in using data and evidence to inform decision-making. I believe in working collaboratively. I believe in putting truth and reconciliation into action and ensuring equity in decision-making. I believe in representing the people of my riding to the best of my ability. I believe in my caucus as a team of incredibly experienced and competent individuals who all come to the table with their own expertise and perspectives. I want to thank the amazing people of my constituency association, the hundreds of volunteers who knocked on thousands of doors, the many donors, and the thousands of supporters who made this possible. I want to thank the people of Banff-Kananaskis for giving me the opportunity to be their voice in this room. I am here because of them and for them. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn debate.